The U.S. dollar has been on fire lately, rising against almost all major global currencies, including ours. In theory, it's good news for our exporters looking to increase sales south of the border as our currency weakens. But if the strong greenback hurts U.S. exports and our recovery, that would no doubt mean tougher times for us, too. Andy Busch is the editor of the Busch Update. We talked earlier, and I asked what's driving the U.S. dollar higher.
Well, it's always about the central banks, isn't it? And economic growth, clearly. In the United States, the United States had a big second quarter after a really bad first quarter. But overall, the situation in this country seems to be on a very good plane, a very good trend. I think in the second half of this year, we're looking at somewhere between 2.5% to 3% growth. That clearly is quite different from what's happening in Canada and in Europe in particular, and Japan and China. I mean, let's go down the list. So the United States, as far as where the central bank is, they're pulling away from monetary policy as far as quantitative easing. We know that's going to end in October. Then it's just a question of when they're going to start raising interest rates. On the other hand, Europe obviously is going the other way with quantitative easing on the table. So we know that's in place. And in Canada, we're looking at maybe a hold to whatever they're thinking of what they were going to do, maybe raise rates like the UK had talked about. But they're definitely on hold, especially after those GDP numbers.
So all of this kind of ties back to this question a lot of people are asking about the U.S. recovery and whether it's really real. Is it happening? And one reason that we're asking that is because although we're seeing signs of improvement, we're not seeing super robust jobs numbers, and your central bank is watching that really closely. Where do you come down on what's really happening?
It's all smoke and mirrors. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on to this. Yes, absolutely. On the job side, the U6, or the underemployed in the United States, is still at 12%. And the unemployment rate's at 6%. That spread used to be about 2 percentage points prior to the Great Recession. Now it's at 4%. So there's a lot more people unemployed or underemployed that just haven't been picked up in this recovery. Overall, yes, energy was a big component of it, but because of energy, you saw manufacturing pick up. There's a lot of good things going on in the United States. We've weathered the storm very well, but we're still not growing at robust rates to pick up the underemployed. So that's why the Fed is always somewhat hesitant and not really sure of themselves about what they're doing. And just a reminder to everybody, the Fed's never done what they're doing right now. So they have no history, no experience with this. They're likely to make a mistake.
One of the things, of course, that we're concerned about here is we need that economy to be doing well. There's this weird conundrum that, your dollar has strengthened, ours has weakened, and it's actually a good news story for our exporters. If your economy stays strong enough that you export from us, are we going to get the right balance? What's your view of kind of the Canadian economy and whether you guys will do well enough to bring us along?
Well, I think one of the problems with the Canadian economy is energy, clearly, and the fact that the United States is a huge competitor now. We're going to be producing in this country at the level of Saudi Arabia shortly, I think maybe in the next year or two. That's the major change that's happened throughout the globe, is the United States is a major oil producer. That hurts Canada overall, so that's one of your bigger exports, and the price of that has come down significantly. And again, you saw some of the oil production already being tailored back a little bit because of this. As far as the currency goes, it's always a double-edged sword, right? The people that are exporting are going to do very well. The people that are importing anything from the U.S., they're going to be hurt. The good news for Canada is that if you're importing goods from Europe, that's going to be okay because, the Canadian dollar and the euro's sunk and the Canadian dollar's kind of sunk with it. So you're a little bit at parity there. You won't be hurt as bad. But overall, you got to look at which companies are doing what.
And I want to ask you about the kind of year ahead, and we do have elections coming up in the U.S. What could change with midterms? Do you think there's anything kind of meaningful that'll change on a policy front? And we think of things like energy policy, those pipelines, and even, I guess, sort of influence on some of the fiscal policy.
Certainly. Well, the first thing I want to say is there's good news already happening. The fact that Dominion's Cove Point got approved for an LNG terminal shows you that there is movement forward in the United States on getting energy out of this country. And that's really good for Europe in particular. As far as the little goofy thing that we have here called not allowing oil exports, that's really got to come to the fore. Maybe Europe can bring a WTO lawsuit against the United States to pry that law away. Under a unified Republican Congress, I think you'll have movement on that. I'm not sure President Obama would sign it. But if the Ukraine-Russia situation leads to a shutoff of energy to Europe, you bet he'll be under tremendous pressure to have that happen. Besides that, on the fiscal side of things are about to get worse here in this country. They've been improving for a while. But remember, a lot of the sequester ends in 2016, so we know it's going to get a lot worse. That's really where we're going to be at for the next 2 years. The Republicans are going to bring a lot of legislation on tax stuff, on energy, on entitlements that won't see the light of day because President Obama won't sign it. But they'll be out there after 2016. I think the logjam breaks and a lot of good things happen.
All right. We'll leave it on an optimistic note, Andy. Always great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Amanda.